For the past 2 years, the James Webb Telescope has been giving us amazing pictures from space. As history's most potent space telescope has peered into the oldest and deepest mysteries of the universe, it has revealed many intriguing riddles along with several groundbreaking discoveries. For example, how come there are galaxies out there that are dormant and that, by our knowledge, shouldn't be there at all? Why does Webb's measurement of the Hubble constant, which expresses the universe's rate of expansion, simply not fit our existing models? Experts are currently working feverishly to find solutions to these problems. Thankfully, the James Webb Telescope can not only reveal the most perplexing secrets of space, but also its breathtaking, even terrifying beauty, which constantly serves as a reminder of how insignificant we are in the greater scheme of things. The crown of creation is how humans like to refer to themselves. Naturally, it is up to each of us to determine for ourselves whether or not we wish to embrace this not exactly modest appellation. However, it is obvious who is deserving of the title when it comes to the subject of who the universe's most remarkable inventors are. But before we misunderstand, the James Webb Telescope hasn't discovered some evil force that created the universe. Instead, it has offered a previously unheard-of combined perspective of the pillars of creation, one of the most well-known photographic motifs in contemporary space research, in conjunction with Hubble. For the first time, the Hubble Space Telescope has recorded the luminous pillars of a stellar cradle in the Eagle Nebula, an open star cluster located some 7,000 light-years distant from Earth. In essence, chilly, dense clouds of gas and dust are where star life first emerges. A protostar is created when the gas clumps collapse due to their own gravity, drawing matter from the area around it. The dazzling child can ignite hydrogen fusion in its core and develop into a true star if it has accumulated sufficient mass. However, stars frequently form collective partnerships like the pillars of creation rather than developing independently. The James Webb Telescope examined the overwhelming structure in the infrared, but the Hubble Cosmic Snapshot from 1995 still displays it in the visible wave range. In the end, the merging of these two pictures offers us whole new perspectives on this structure, whose finger-like projections are even bigger than the solar system as a whole. Their strong radiation and stellar winds have blown enormous holes into the dust cloud shells, giving them a distinctive appearance, even while many young protostars and stars lie dormant in the dusty cumulus cocoons. It is understandable that the pillars of creation were one of the first objects the James Webb Telescope observed in 2022 given this magnificent sight. NASA has now unveiled considerably additional information by combining the Hubble and Webb photos. The visible light displays the blazing hot, burning gases of the star forge, while the infrared photos show the stellar infants and cold gas components. The main point is that the spectacle is accessible as both a picture and a video. A thrilling journey through the three-dimensional pillars of creation awaits you if you watch the accompanying clip. The picture alternates between visible and infrared light during this, demonstrating once more the significance of using many space telescopes to examine the various facets of a single structure. The combined image of the pillars of creation is just as fascinating as the portrait of the star family. Notable is the family portrait that Webb recently took 1,300 light-years away in the Serpens Nebula. Here, we are specifically talking about a stellar nursery, or more specifically, a so-called reflection nebula, which is only illuminated by the light of the stars in its vicinity and interior and does not emit any light of its own. Nebulae were frequently still impenetrable optical barriers for earlier observatories, but Webb's NIRCom can partially pierce the dust and gas components, revealing objects that have long escaped our study vision. In addition to the photo's vivid orange, red, and blue gas and dust, we can also make out the brilliant brilliance of the innumerable nascent stars. Despite being only 100,000 years old, several of these dazzlingly luminous celestial bodies are still in their infancy from an astronomical perspective. However, they will eventually reach the mass of our Sun. In summary, the flame-like formations at the upper left corner of the picture, which resemble enormous shreds, are one of the star family portrait's most striking details. These are the remnants of gas and radiation outflows from young stars that were either hazy or non-existent in previous visible light photographs. These protostellar outflows are like sleep that falls from the sky during a powerful storm, according to NASA. The fact that the outflows all point in the same direction is demonstrated for the first time in this photograph. For the scientists, what appear to be simple structures that move from top left to bottom right in the pictures are a crucial study indicator. The idea that nascent stars have a tendency to rotate in the same direction when their gaseous birth envelopes collapse is, after all, supported by this photographic evidence. However, what is the significance of the black bars at the image's upper right and lower left corners? Has NASA used the sensor pen to render one or two UFOs unidentifiable in this instance? The black rectangles only show missing data, so it's not really that intriguing. The Super Jupiter's first image shows 4,941 systems with 6,911 exoplanets. Almost every day, more and more planetary worlds are discovered that orbit stars other than the Sun. Some odd celestial bodies have already been added to the star maps by researchers. The gas giant HD 189,733b, which is barely 63 light-years distant, and, based on the most recent discoveries, smells like rotten eggs, is one example of them thus far. The first sign of hydrogen sulfide on an extrasolar planet is actually very odd or humorous at first. In addition, we now know of a large number of neighboring exoplanets, some of which are Earth-sized and perhaps habitable, proving that the experts are correct in other respects. In this sense, K218b in particular has been in the news for a few months since it is thought to be a whole ocean world where life may have already developed. The spectral signatures of methane, carbon dioxide, and dimethyl sulfide, abbreviated DMS, were among the possible biosignatures that Webb's near-infrared spectrometer, NIRSPEC, recorded here. The latter is the primary source of atmospheric sulfur and gives off the characteristic marine odor. It is created on Earth by marine plankton and during the breakdown of organic materials. However, the interpretation of the DMS signal on K218b is a very separate issue. In actuality, it was not very noticeable in the Webb data and only became apparent when the datasets were examined in a very specific manner. Therefore, a little patience is still needed until the context of this fascinating discovery is fully understood. In the instance of a photograph that Webb took in an entirely different location, things appear somewhat different. Even with the large number of exoplanets already identified, there are still few distinct pictures of these extraterrestrial worlds. Young, hot gas giants make up the majority of photographs. After all, they appear as relatively bright spots in the infrared. But there's a far more hip method. For the first time, a cold, older exoplanet was successfully made directly visible a few weeks ago by Elizabeth Matthews and her team from the Max Planck Institute for Astronomy in Heidelberg. Studying the triple star system Epsilon Indi, which is within 12 light-years from Earth, served as the basis for the photograph. Although the orange dwarf star Epsilon Indiae and two brown dwarfs comprise the cosmic trio, previous spectral studies had already suggested the presence of a sizable planetary partner. Later, an examination using Webb's MIRI spectrograph showed that the system did, in fact, include an exoplanet, although it was located entirely differently than previous research had shown. This was due to the straightforward fact that the mass and orbit of this massive gas planet had been grossly overestimated in earlier research. The fact is that we are dealing with a celestial body that is unquestionably a super Jupiter. We recall that Jupiter is the largest planet in our solar system, with a mass of 318 Earth masses and a diameter of about 140,000 kilometers. But the brilliant spot of light that the astronomers found in Epsilon Indi's photos is most likely 6 times as massive as our Jupiter. The extrasolar colossus, known as Epsilon Indiae b, has a somewhat eccentric orbit around the parent star Epsilon Indiae, with the greatest distance roughly matching the distance between the Sun and Neptune. This constellation causes the super Jupiter to take an incredible 200 years to complete one orbit. Actually, the unexpected variations in previous measurements were explained by this eccentric orbit. In fact, these had mistakenly placed the planet in a circular orbit while simultaneously detecting it at the point in its orbit that was closest to the star. Nevertheless, in addition to an orbit modification, the new research also showed some of the exoplanet's features. For instance, the average temperature here falls to about 0 C, and the gas giant is 3.5 billion years old, so it is definitely no longer a planetary baby. All 25 or so exoplanets that have been directly photographed to date are younger than 500 million years old, with most having less than 100 million years. In light of this, Epsilon Indi AB is the oldest exoplanet to be directly observed to date, in addition to being the coldest. Of course, the scientists find the associated visuals to be not only visually stunning, but also incredibly valuable for learning new things. Such old exoplanets, for instance, are perfect for testing our planetary evolution models and obtaining fresh data on the final phases of extrasolar worlds. Even then, there are still some unanswered questions regarding Epsilon Indi AB because it seems that some of its lower wavelength radiation is actually being absorbed. The infrared radiation may be absorbed by clouds in the gas giant's atmosphere, but chemical substances like carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, and methane may also be to blame. Fortunately, the experts are already preparing to look into the effects, and if nothing unexpected occurs, the real causes of the decreased radiation flux will soon be known. In relation to suppression, you are now invited to increase the flow of subscriptions by clicking the button beneath our video. Joining our group now will ensure that you never miss another thrilling video from us. See you soon.